right, good morning once again, everybody. I'm happy to see you all made it to the final day of the conference. How's everybody feeling from last night? Was that a fun party? That looked pretty good. You guys, I was walking around, I saw a lot of a lot of smiles, a lot of great dancing people. It was really fun to be a part of. Did you guys like the party at the museum? Pretty good? Feel like kids again? Raise your hand if you did the most embarrassing photo booth shot last night, or you know someone who did. Full disclosure, we do have the digital copies of all your pictures. The dance party couldn't be stopped. I saw you guys getting going at the end, so I'm glad you guys had a little bit of fun. Before we get too far this morning, I want to extend a warm welcome to some San Diego area students. They're here this morning with us for lunch, well, this afternoon, I guess, and our keynote speaker, so welcome. Be on the lookout, you guys, for an email. It's going to have a post-event survey. We're going to send that off. Also, a conference certificate of completion for you. So that's going to be coming to you guys through an email. Also, good news, we're going to send you a link to the Cengage YouTube channel. That's going to have all the videos you saw this week and of the speakers. So we're going to be sending that to you through an email. Also, I want to let you know all the PowerPoint presentations and the breakout sessions, plus the ones you had from our keynote, are going to be posted on our website in about 2 weeks. So you can go to the Course Technology event website and see the PowerPoints. You can review the breakout session ones as well as the keynotes. And also the video interviews. I know some of you guys took video interviews for us in Torrey Pines 1. We want to ask you to do that one more time on your way out if you guys wouldn't mind. We do have some questions to get you started, so you don't have to come up with everything on your own, but it's all about feedback. So we want to have you guys stop in and take care of that for us on Torrey Pines 1 on your way out. So now I'd like to introduce Eleanor Gregory. She is the brand manager for Introductory Computing and also a partner with the computing editorial team, gathering market feedback to guide product development. Please welcome Eleanor Gregory, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled to be here to introduce our closing keynote speaker, Dr. Constance Staley, a longtime educator, a leader of faculty development workshops, and an author. Connie is passionate about helping students develop skills for lifelong success and empowering instructors with innovative teaching strategies. In her 37 years in education, Connie has spent 20 years as the director of the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs first-year seminar program. Her program has always been considered to be at the cutting edge, introducing creative, active learning strategies that extend into faculty's discipline-based courses, winning the first ever University of Colorado system-wide internal technology grant, and including many Teaching with Technology award winners among the 80 teaching instructors from more than 30 different campus units. Connie is also the author of the market-leading series of college success textbooks titled Focus, which helps students and instructors develop strategies for dealing with distraction and multitasking in the classroom. And that's exactly what she's going to talk to you about today. Lastly, in addition to her passion for education, Connie's passionate about PowerPoint. She is a self-proclaimed PowerPoint junkie, and in fact, she's already told her children that when she's ready for the home, that just make sure she is set up with the latest version of PowerPoint and she'll be just fine. So please welcome Dr. Constance Staley.
Well, good morning. I am absolutely delighted that you're here for the closing session. I'm delighted to be here because I'm actually an intruder. This is not my discipline. I don't teach technology. I have a degree in education, in linguistics, and in communication. I teach technology indirectly. And so it's been fascinating for me to be in a conference in a discipline other than my own and to learn from you. And I hope today I can provide you with some insight that maybe some of your colleagues outside of your own discipline would have toward what you teach, and we can learn from one another. So my topic for today is driven to distraction at the drop of a hat. And I think this is going to really help you think about some things and some things that you need to help your students understand in terms of college success. So driven to distraction at the drop of a hat. And I hope you're watching that slide because it took a long time to create that. But I do love PowerPoint. Okay. Let's see what we need to do here. We missed something along the way. I know if somebody can just talk amongst yourselves. Thanks. Okay, as I was just saying, driven to distraction at the drop of a hat. Now here's where I'm from. What do you think? Fairly picturesque. There's me in my office. On the 4th floor, I have a corner window. It doesn't face the right way, but that's all right. I think you have to teach 50 or 60 years to actually face the mountains. Nevertheless, in terms of hats, this is my philosophy and this is what I do, because half of my job is in the communication department, the other half is directing a huge first-year seminar program. In terms of hats, I'm into protective helmets, because I think that the training wheels come off in college, and I tell my faculty that you are running alongside your first-year students, and what will happen is before long, they will be cycling competitors. It'll be amazing where they can go on their own. It'll be wonderful. So this is what my program looks like. It's interdisciplinary, it's thematic, it's very hands-on, it's very applied. So if you are interested in cyber terrorism, you take a course called 25. It's the hour after Jack Bauer, saves the world. If you're interested in cold cases, you take a course called Sleuth. Lots of fascinating things and lots of highly, highly creative faculty. As you heard, I am a Cengage author. I have the red book, which is the comprehensive book, the blue book, which is concise, the purple book for career and technical schools, and the green book for community colleges. So I'm going for an entire rainbow kind of effect. 3 books are now in the works. So what I'd like to do, you've done a lot of sitting at this conference, is I'd like for you to stand up. We're gonna do a little activity that I'm calling Stand Up and Be Counted. And I'm gonna show you some statements, and if you see a statement, and we have some students here today, well, let me see the hands of those students. Okay, I see some. All right, and we may have some students out in the audience, in Cyberlandia or wherever they are, but I'm gonna flash up some statements, and I want you to reflect back to when you were a first year student, and if a statement is true of you, I want you to sit down and stay down, all right? When you were a freshman, no matter how old you are, you were homesick. If that was true of you, would you take your seat and stay down? You had significant other problems. Romantic partner, distance relationship, something. Breaking up is hard to do, that kind of thing. You had a really good time partying. Oh, look at that. Look at those people we lost. More from that side of the room, too. I should have studied harder. In retrospect, that first semester of college, I really could have put forth a little more academic effort. I had trouble managing my time. I sometimes felt I didn't quite fit in. I had some professors I couldn't understand. Oh boy. I sometimes wondered why I decided to go to college. What is this all about? I hoped I'd have enough money to make it through. And finally, I could have benefited by learning from more fantastic professors like the ones in this room. Okay. I think I made my point. And my point is, the more things change, the more they stay the same. On the other hand, let's look at things differently. Whether you're a student, a professor, whatever hat you wear, the future, as Yogi Berra said, ain't what it used to be. And I think this conference has been all about that. In fact, when I think about my own teaching, I often feel like this. Do you? I think about the future of higher education. I think about technology and I wonder, it's a conundrum. From somebody in my position teaching technology indirectly, is it a toy or is it a tool or both? You know, I went out for dinner the other night and my fortune cookie said, for the future student, higher education will be redefined. I thought, I can't even get away from this when I go out for dinner. Here it is again. How? That's what I want to know. And that's what this conference has been about. In the future, will higher education have all flipped classrooms? Will everything be online and we'll be the wizards behind the screen? I'm sorry, but when I thought of this pun, I couldn't let it go. MOOC says cash cows. Now we're seeing a lot of people trying to figure out how to make this model sustainable. So for example, having a MOOC be required intro course into a regular degree program, all kinds of iterations of this coming up. This I've read about a lot. It's all about the higher education bubble. So whether you read the Chronicle or the Boston Globe or the Economist or the Washington Monthly, everybody's talking about the higher education bubble is going to burst. Maybe, I don't know. All I know is this. When I went to college, things seemed simpler. It was a long time ago. But you packed everything up in the back of the car. You know, your teddy bear, the dog, everything else. You drove far away. You were let off. You were on your own. Your mother, if she was like mine, cried all the way home. I shed a few tears myself. So in terms of teaching, and in terms of technology, and in terms of college today, the issue really is, what should we do? How should we do it? When should we do it? There are lots and lots of questions. And the question that I want to start out with is who? Because I think basically we have to understand our students. Now, students, if you're here today, I'm going to say some things that are being written about you in the academic and the popular press, and some of them may sound a little harsh or whatever. I think you need to know what those are, and these are obviously things that are not true about you. They're true about those students out there, right? So rest assured, but it'll be good for you to know this. And I'm talking now about traditional age students. Take a look at the book Generation on a Tightrope. You'll see things like this. These are digital natives, talking about traditional age students, living in a largely analog world. They don't want to be treated as children, yet they are extremely tied to their parents. The new term for parents is not Apache, not helicopter, Velcro parents. They're coming of age in a really, really tough economy, yet they would like to enter at the CEO level. They have 241 Facebook friends, but often are very uncomfortable in face-to-face settings. They're global citizens in theory, yet they may not know much about the world and other cultures. They're largely unprepared for the world they're about to enter. And so the book goes on and talks about, for example, a case where two roommates are giving each other the silent treatment. They're in the middle of a big argument. The silent treatment has to do with the fact that not a word is being uttered, everything is happening via texts. They are arguing vehemently, but not a sound is being made. So we do know things like this. They read less. We know about that. The research also says they study less. So in terms of when I went to college, it was about 24 hours a week. Now it's 14 hours a week, and this particular study looks at the question of why and what's going on. Are standards being lowered? Are we getting a different kind of student? And so, you know, if you're talking about a non-traditional student, it's very difficult to study. You know, when a dinosaur is biting you on the arm. They tune out of lectures. I love this slide where the professor is taking the pulse there. They can be what I call ostriches. Ostriches actually bury their heads in the sand and act like nothing is wrong in my terminology. And so I had a student, for example, who said on the first day of class that he was going to be a gastroenterologist. And I thought, wow, that's a really lofty goal for a first semester freshman. The problem was he didn't turn anything in all semester. Despite, you know, repeated encouragement and intervention on my part. He came to class and he was a fine fellow. He was an ostrich. Sometimes they like to use technology to beat the system. Now, students, do not write down this website. 10 clever ways to cheat on tests. And so everything from a YouTube of how to take the label off your cherry Coke, put the physics formulas on the inside of the label, and then in the exam, every time you take a sip, all this information comes flooding back to you. It's a wonderful thing. Or embedding some text in a white font so that whatever you're writing can't really be traceable. The bottom line is, today, students are distracted. But I also want to make this point, and I want to be very clear about it, so are we. I want to talk about Generation C, and this comes out of marketing research. It was published in 2010. Marketers are very interested in trends and watching buying patterns. And so they talked about Generation C. Generation C is connected. They are communicating. They are content-centric. Content-centric, they love to generate content and mash it up. They're computerized, they're community-oriented, and they build those communities online, and they are continually clicking. A new generation will be coming into its own over the next decade, they said. And what will that generation look like? It will look like this. Born after 1990, adolescents after 2000, urban and suburban. They're culturally liberal, not necessarily progressive. They're upwardly mobile, but they live with their parents longer. They've grown up with everything. iPods, iTunes, iPhones. And they do everything in this new generation with personal digital devices. So they attend lectures, they download their assignments, they watch television, they book things, travel. They do everything with a PDD. They interact socially, and they're very comfortable expressing themselves in that environment. And by 2020, this marketing research said they will make up 40% of the population in the US, Europe, and the BRIC countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China. They said that these young people will be on the grid 24/7, social animals 2.0. There will be digital information osmosis swarming everywhere, and in fact, privacy issues will not be quite as important as they seem to be now, because people will decide that transparency is worth it. Everywhere, and that there will be a continuing generation gap, so that now 65-year-olds in this country spend 2 to 3 hours a week online, and by contrast, your students spend much, much more. So that gap will sort of continue between younger people and older people. Now, I ask you, does this sound familiar? Yes, probably, because you have those students, many of them, with many of those characteristics in your class right now. So I want to talk today about teaching the distracted, and 4 considerations. These may be things you've thought about, and I may be able to verify some things that you've had a gut feeling about. But the first one is, I think technology can lead to overconfidence. Here's what I mean. This is a study that was done, perhaps some of you are familiar with it, in which students were asked, can you do these tasks in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel? And the tasks were very basic, medium, and challenging. And the students marked what they could do, and then they were tested immediately after that. And so what happened was, as you might predict, they thought they could do things they actually couldn't do when it came right down to it. Here's another way that I think technology sometimes makes students overconfident. Now, one of the things that I do in my first year seminar class is I teach note-taking. And so the week that we talk about note-taking, this is how I do it. And I have to tell you that note-taking is pretty much a snoozer, you know, when it comes to topics. Although I would suggest that maybe you think about this technique and teach note-taking indirectly while you're teaching, you know, keyboarding or introduction to computers or programming or whatever else you teach. So a third of the class, I said, you're going to use the Cornell system. You're going to draw a line down your page and you're going to put keywords over here and questions and then, you know, write notes on the other side, the wider side. And a third of you, I want to do mind mapping. I want you to draw things and connect things and, you know, just create something. And you folks over here get my PowerPoints. I'll give you minis of my PowerPoints. And so this is what happened. The first people, the Cornell people, were writing furiously. They were covering front and back. The middle people were drawing all over the place. These people just sort of sat there feeling very, very confident. And I said, all right, now I'm done with the lecture. We're going to do a quiz. It's going to be a very substantial, very difficult, challenging quiz. And we'll see who does best. And so look at your notes for a minute, and then we did the quiz. Now, who do you think won? Well, I can tell you it wasn't the PowerPoint, folks. It actually has been every year, and I've done this 5 years in a row, and it's only anecdotal evidence, but it was the mind mappers, because they were drawing connections, and they were seeing how this fit into that, etc. But the PowerPoint people sat back and thought, I'm going to ace this. I got her stuff. And it didn't work that way. And in fact, here's what we know that students think about PowerPoint. They think that PowerPoint is pretty boring. It's one of the dullest methods we can use. And you realize this is heresy for me to be saying this because I love PowerPoint so much. If there were, you know, an Alcoholics Anonymous, if there was something like that for PowerPoint, I would go. So some people would like death to PowerPoint, right? It looks like this to students. Right? So here's another way that I think technology can lead to overconfidence. Now, I created this website. This is a fictitious website. It's called researchadvisors.com, and it's in my book. So you have a paper to write for your history class, a midterm in your calc class, and a presentation in your psych class. You have all these things to do. So think about this. Option one, let our staff of qualified researchers put together an impressive bibliography, all right, an annotated bibliography. Prices start at $39.95. Or option two, upload your assignment and allow one of our people to draft something for you. You put your finishing touches on it yourself. Starts at $69.95, or for only $99.95, you can upload the whole assignment and we'll take care of everything. So I talked about this with my students and I said, what do you think? And they said, well, first of all, the price points are excellent. And then we got into some nitty-gritty. And one student said, well, how is option one different from using a reference librarian? I said, oh, that's a good question. But these sites actually exist, and you know about them. You know about unemployedprofessors.com, right? You want that sweet Ivy League vibe to reverberate through your essays, but you don't have the chops to write that way. You can hire one of our unemployed professors. And there's even a place, if you are an unemployed professor, to upload your resume, your CV, if you want a job. Or we'll take your online class for you and we'll guarantee you an A. And so we're coming up with technological solutions to these sorts of issues, like keystroke profiles and roving eyes in the lecture hall while the exam is going on, etc. But you can see how technology could lead you to be overconfident. Here's another point I want to make. In what's been called this roadrunner culture, beep, beep, that we all live in today, my question is, and I'm concerned about this because with information osmosis, there's going to be a lot of information everywhere, and a lot of it is going to be largely unverified. If we just look at bullets, bits, and bytes, is that enough? That's the question. If you grab your news on the run and you just hear a piece of something. So I Googled, what college should I go to? And within 0.39 seconds, I got over 1 billion responses. Everything from 17 magazine to the New York Times to ACT. Lots and lots of information out there. And my question is, when we're distracted, how critically do we think? So I get the New York Times bullets on my phone, and I went home from school one day and I said, wow, you know that Harvard cheating scandal? All those students got expelled. And my husband gets the Wall Street Journal bullets on his phone, and he said, no, they didn't. And I said, yes, they did. I saw it on the New York Times. And he said, no, they didn't. And so here we had two sets of bullets, both of which were true, but the media gatekeepers chose different things to communicate. And if you just look at the bullet, you don't know the whole story. You have to dig. You have to dig deeply to find out what's accurate. So as you're teaching your students information technology, I'm sure you're also teaching them, I want you to be teaching them information technology, right? You're teaching them intro to technology and computer technology and that kind of. How about information literacy? Let's get the term right, right? So when it comes to a website, for example, how current is it? How accurate is it? How authoritative is it? How objective is it? How thoroughly does it cover the topic? Because what the research says is that students will generally form a conclusion and then grab pieces of information that support their existing conclusion, as opposed to looking at lots and lots of information and then coming up with a conclusion. And I'm talking now especially about first-year students. Have any of you read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow? Fascinating book. Take a look at it, because it makes this point. We can think in different ways. Now watch. Thinking fast is impressionistic. It's interpretive. It's intuitive. Then there's another way to think. It's thinking slow. You need to be deliberate. You need to be intentional. You need to solve problems. You need to go step by step by step. Here's the issue about that. And I don't want to imply that thinking fast is easy, because actually there's lots of learning and cultural literacy and things that go into knowing that somebody with crossed arms, furrowed brow, eyes set, is probably upset about something. Right? And often what happens is that your fast thinking will then inform your slow thinking, and your slow thinking will say, whoa, what am I going to do about this? If I meet this person on the street, is he upset at me? What do I need to do? Should I fight? What about flight? If flight is the answer, what's the quickest exit? Okay. The issue is, again, and I'm getting to a point here that I think is very important to communicate to your students. Thinking slow is something that can't go away. We can't push everything over into the fast category. That it takes time to solve a calculus problem. Sometimes, lots of times. Sometimes repeatedly. Sometimes 6 drafts of your essay. Right? So thinking slow is incredibly important. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. Number 2, technology equals or leads to underperformance. Tony Schwartz writes a lot of great books about productivity and leadership and energy management, and he says our lives have been divided into smaller and smaller increments of focus. We do more things than ever, but we've lost control of our attention. This is something that we definitely have to teach students because I don't think they're aware of it. And students, listen to this and see what you think. So my books are called Focus because that's what's so hard to do, especially for entering students, but inevitably for all of us. So my question is, where has all the focus gone? So, you know, when you start to look at the statistics and you see how many emails, how many websites, how many bloggers, the fact that the average American worker has 8 windows open at a time and is going to jump after 11 seconds, one study says, 11 minutes at a time on any given project, switching between different aspects of it every 3 minutes. And so I like to use very concrete examples with my students. So there you are, you're on the operating table. And it's a lifer, whoops, she gets a text here. Well, so she puts down the scalpel and whoops, honey, should I get dog food on the way home? So this is you, this is your life. And when you put it in those concrete terms, it tends to sound more urgent. Multitasking really involves breaking a connection. Okay, so this is your brain on multitasking. When you break a connection, it takes time to rebuild. It causes a brownout in your brain because there's just not enough energy to go around. It's addictive. Have you noticed when you're sitting at your computer sometimes you think, what else could I do that would be interesting besides this? The more you multitask, the less you're able to focus, the research says. Some research says it causes a 10-point drop in your IQ. And if you're a teenager, if you're an 18 or 19-year-old coming into college, you're particularly vulnerable. I want to show you some things that you can do with your students about this. I'm going to take you to a New York Times site. It's an interactive site. I don't know if you know about it. It's called Gauging Your Distraction. You might want to write it down and work with your students on this. So I'm going to start the game here. Right now I have to go through the open gate. Whoops. Oh. Whoops. Did I get that? Oh dear. Oh dear. I'm getting panicked here. Oh, here's a text. Okay, let's see. Do I want to see Mamma Mia, New Jersey Boys, or let's see Spamalot. I love that. I've seen it twice, but I'm going to pick that again. Okay. All right. Okay, back to the driving here. Whoops, here's another text. Saturday or Sunday? So you can't do it Sunday, so how about Saturday? So you see the point here, right? There's an old Scottish proverb that says, to do 2 things at once is to do neither. So multitasking is really just switch tasking. And so when you're working on that algebra, and then you're writing text messages back and forth, you have to pick up where you left off, and it's very difficult. Now I want you to do an experiment with me. You need something to write on. You need some real old-fashioned paper. And I'm going to time you. I need you on your paper to draw 2 long lines, just like this. You can draw the third one, but we're just going to deal with the top 2 for now. On the top line, you're going to write, when I say go, and I'm going to time you, multitasking is worse than a lie. On the second line, you're going to go from 1 to 27 in terms of numbers. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. Put your hand up when you're done with that task of writing both lines. Any hands up? Few hands up in the back. That was 25 seconds. Okay, all right, stop. Would you make sure that you have one more line? And let's try it again. This time, I want you to go back and forth. M1, U2, L. On your mark, get set, go. Waiting for a hand. Anybody done? This is taking a very long time. We're at 45 seconds, 50 seconds. All right, 50 seconds. So what did you notice this second round? It's very distracting. It takes twice as long, generally, based on your statistics, right? How about the results? How many of you forgot how to spell multitasking? Okay, good, good. Now this is something we can teach our students in any course, in any discipline. They don't know this. They feel very productive when they're doing all these things at once. And when you have 2 slow thinking activities trying to happen at once, it's just not going to work. Here's what I worry about. One of my instructors forwarded this email to me. Dear Professor X, I've been extremely unmotivated to do any homework, not just for your class, but for all of them. The truth is, college is starting to wear me down. I'm so behind in all my classes that I decided to take the last weekend off from work to catch up. I started working on the online homework for Japanese and English, but then I wandered to comic sites and I spent the whole weekend reading online comics. I wasn't this way in high school, and I don't think there's anything you can do to help me. Since I've done everything in my power to avoid homework this semester, and I haven't even touched the big assignment since downloading it. I'm sorry you've had to get to know the girl I am becoming. I will be in class next week, but honestly, I don't think I'll have anything to turn in. I'm so disappointed in myself, and I'm really, really sorry. Now that's a kind of a self-esteem issue. And we can help students work through that. And some students actually have serious, we can call them addiction issues, and actually need some counseling help through that. But I worry about that. You know, some students get down on themselves because they think, I must not be motivated for college. This isn't right for me. I'm not college material. I need to drop out. So look at this example. Here's a student online, and she says, hey, I've got to read that chapter in my psych text. And somebody off screen says, yeah, you'd better get on that. So then a few minutes go by and she's wandered to 6 more sites, and finally she texts a friend and says, have you read the chapter? And the other student says, nah, have you? And so here's my question. Is that really a motivation issue? Or is it a follow-through issue? She's motivated. She's brought it up twice now. She's gotten all these outside opinions. Yes, she's motivated. But she can't follow through. There's a distinction. I'd also like to make this point. Hey, I really must grade last week's exams. Yes, your spouse says you should accomplish that task. Have you graded your exams yet? No, have you? You need an activation trigger. You need, like our students do, to think through, when I do X, I need to then follow through with Y. When I start asking other people for advice about something that I know what I need to do, and I'm in a comfy situation here on a couch, and you know, I need to follow through. And I know that. And it is programmed now into my brain and into my behavior. Sometimes you have to call on this guy. His name is willpower. And you have to invoke him, and he's kind of elusive. But we can teach students and we can teach ourselves about this issue of control. Because there are things you think you can control, or excuse me, think you can't control, but you can. I call them killer bees. You're working on project A, killer bee. Keep having this thought, recurring thought, right? You need to have a notebook next to you, write it down. Simple. But we don't think about those things. Things you think you can't control, and you can't. You cannot control your grandmother's illness, unfortunately. Things you think you can control, but you can't, your partner. You've tried this, right? It doesn't work because he or she is at the same time trying to do the same thing. Things you think you can control, but you don't. Your cell phone. If your cell phone is the culprit, you don't just turn it off. What do? You put it in the TV room in the basement so that when you have a thought, oh, I should go on that Pottery Barn site, there was a sale of this, you'd have to actually go downstairs and get it. You can control your cell phone instead of letting it control you if you simply invoke willpower. Some of our students are tangled in an endless web of distractions. And so there are all kinds of sites that will help them lock themselves out for a while. So stay focused, concentrate is another one, self-control, or there's always the option to unsubscribe. And there are even sites now that can help you unsubscribe in seconds as opposed to, a more lengthy process that takes minutes. And actually lots of students are doing that. So Facebook is trending down, students are bored with it. And Snapchat and Instagram are up, at least this week. I think it's extremely important at the beginning of the semester to do this. Set the tone. Talk with your students, and I know many of you do this, about exactly what your expectations are in terms of academic professionalism, civil discourse, all the things that make up that environment that changes perhaps from high school to college. And they may not know that. They may be a first-generation student, like I am. And many of you are first-generation students. Oh, wow, lots of you. So I want to show you a video that goes with my books, and it's based on this theme. It is comedy, so it's okay to laugh. It's two guys in New York City who are part of what is called the Multitask Force. And they go around New York City. They're not too bright, but nevertheless, they go around New York City and they bust unsuspecting people who are multitasking. And you can see a little bit about the response. It's fun.
Does he have his phone on?
Yeah.
Did that guy have his phone?
Oh, don't distract him while I'm driving. I can't see that.
That looks like you could possible text message him while driving.
Do you want me to turn around, should I?
No,
want me to turn around,
no,
should
no, I think it's an iPod. It's just an iPod.
Well, Doyle, if I'm not mistaken, I think an iPod also is an issue.
It's not illegality. Use the iPod. texting is,
I know
that's
that.
against the law.
Dispatch to mobile.
This is mobile.
1117 in progress. 17th in Union.
Yeah,
Got about 5 windows open.
we're on it. Got it. Okay, come on. Just got an 1117.
An 1117?
17th in Union. Will you map it, please?
Yeah. Can you just, ow.
Forget it. Forget it.
All right, 17th and Union.
No, you can't do
Will
that.
you relax? Okay, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing, so I wouldn't even worry about it.
Go.
He's 5'10". There's a man. He's 5'10". He's on a laptop. He's got a phone in his hand.
Okay.
Come on, Rick. Let's go. All
right.
Let's go. Come on.
Okay.
It's in here.
When we talk about multitasking, what we're really talking about is switching between tasks. And it seems like we're doing more than one thing simultaneously, but we're not. Essentially, what we have to do is, if you're going from doing one thing to another, you have to clear your mind, and in particular, clear your short-term memory of whatever it is you're working on, and then reload the new task into your short-term memory. And then when you switch back, you have to do the same thing. So you're losing efficiency, and I think you're also losing conceptual thinking, creative thinking, all of those things that really require you to keep one task in mind for an extended period of time.
Excuse me, sir. How you doing? Doyle from the MTF.
Okay, hello.
Looks like you got a lot of things going on here. You multitasking?
Yeah. Talking on the phone, and I guess I'll
Okay.
check.
Would you mind hanging up for just 1 second?
Yeah, can you give me a second? Is this
Just
fine?
would you mind just hanging up? You can call him back. It's fine. How many times have you checked your email in the last 20 minutes?
Religiously.
Religiously?
Religiously, yeah.
Did you know that multitasking causes brain fatigue? And did you know that it's not multitasking, it's more like switch tasking? And every time you switch, it takes time for the brain to get back to a focused state, okay? It's kind of a time waster.
Really?
Yeah.
How are you doing there? I guess you could say you did an okay job. You know, I'd say you did probably just a bit below average. I'd give you a C-.
Carmichael, he's pretty hard on me, but I think I'm growing on him a little bit. I think I just gotta try a little bit harder, you know. Oh, that's one of our guys right there. They got a, you know, aerial view. They can see what's going on.
So that's about half the video. And what I like to do to get my point across is that, especially with my first-year students, I show that the first day of class. And I wear my jacket. And I deputize some students. And it's fun. The point is, you can train your brain to focus. The human mind wanders about half the time. Wandering shows your priorities. So if that killer bee is gotta pay the rent, gotta find the money, gotta pay the rent, that's where your mind really is. And we need to work to train it to focus. Technology, and you know this, and I don't even want to spend much time on it because you know this so well, leads to such creativity on the part of our students. But I think we need to think more about which comes first, the technology or the pedagogy. Is it the case that I find a really cool new tool and, oh, wow, I could use this in class, this would be so great? Or should it be the other way around? What I really want students to learn is X, what's the best methodology? What's the best vehicle for delivering the kind of learning that I want to happen? So I'm going to teach a course a week after next. It's a condensed spring break course from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. every day. And I did it last year, and students got the syllabus, you know, and the assignments in January, and so it's maxed out. And last year I kept getting notes slipped under my door. They just loved it. It was so lively, and lots of things were happening, simulations, case studies, role-playing, all kinds of things. But for that particular class, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go low-tech for the most part. I'm going to use something that I call passports to learning. So every day to get into class, you need an index card, a 5x7 card, covered with notes from the reading front and back. And you file that in, you know, sort of a recipe box, index card box every day. Sometimes students use, you know, a size 2 font or whatever, but here's the deal. There's a payoff. Because for the final exam, you get your whole stack to use. Whoa. And the quality of what we talk about in class is so much better because everybody's done the reading and they're really into it. So in this 1 week-long class, I'm going to tell them I'm not going to cheat you. I'm not going to water this down. You're going to write 2 papers. You're going to have a group presentation. You're going to have a 10-page midterm on Wednesday, a 10-page final exam on Friday. And last year, they focused like I've never seen before. It was like all the distractions, they didn't have time for the distractions. They focused. Now, I'm not suggesting that we need to teach all of our classes that way, but when you string it out over 16 weeks, lots of things get in the way. And this was a learning objective, or a learning lesson, I should say, for me. I'm also going to do something I've written about. I'm going to use a lot of visible quiz type techniques. So everybody has a set of cards, and there are some questions on the screen, and they work in small groups to review for the midterm or the final. And I can see, and so can they, instantly who has the right answer by the color of card they're holding up. And so I can see pockets. In this group over here that spent a lot of time partying and they sat down, I can see those pockets in a way that I couldn't with clickers necessarily, at least at my institution. They love this. They love talking over the answers, and it's low-tech. But here's Bloom's taxonomy, the revision of it. And here's the point that I want to make. Your students have pretty much decided that the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy are kind of pointless. I mean, if you don't know who the president of a certain country is, just Google it, right? You'll get a billion responses within 0.39 seconds. So we don't have to worry about that. They want to jump right in there at the top. That's a lot more fun. But Bloom said this is, you know, this is a taxonomy. You kind of work your way up. And there are times when you do need to remember because you don't have access to Google like in an exam. I think the first stage in all of this, and this can be where technology plays a huge role, is engaging them, right? Because this is their native tongue and they're so very into it. But we need to be thinking all the while, where am I headed and why? One of the things I like about technology is the way it addresses so many learning styles. So I don't know if you're familiar with the VARC. Anybody use the VARC? It's free, it's online, comes out of New Zealand. And your students can find out in a very short period of time for free if they are visual, oral, read, write, or kinesthetic. And what do you suspect that most of our students are today? They're pretty kinesthetic. They're pretty hands-on. They like realistic things, things that are lifelike, things that really serve a purpose, a practical purpose. So You know, in terms of learning styles, if we want to emphasize the visual and draw on the visual learners, sure, concept maps and allowing images in essays, music and discussion for those oral learners. We've always been pretty good at this, reading assignments and written papers and exams, but when it comes to kinesthetic, the whole world opens up with technology. And so I send my students iJot emails, a little video of me. Does anybody do that? Kind of fun. Sometimes I get a message from a school, a professor who's using my book, and he says, I'd like for my students to meet you. And we talk about Skype, and is that an option? And if it isn't, then I send an iJot email, and it's a little video of me, you know, sitting at my computer saying, hi, students at such and such, and here's what I want for you this semester. Infographics, YouTubes, films, digital storytelling, VARC syllabi. Now that's interesting. How can you take a syllabus and VARC it? Well, one of my professors who teaches in my program did that. He took a course, it was a 400-level course, and he translated his black and white paper syllabus into a syllabox. And it was a cultural geography class, and inside the syllabox, there was some origami. There was an actual puzzle. The syllabus had to be put together. There was a CD of cultural music. And the first day of class, he brought this shopping bag, and the students took it out like it was a gift and opened it very carefully. And he was communicating to them, I know you learn differently, and I'm good with that. We can work with that. Now, I thought that was brilliant, but it was way too much work, and so I turned it into an assignment. And so the students VARCed the syllabus. And one student, it was very interesting, actually wrote programming. You were in the syllabus and you were turning and doing different things. And another student said, I noticed you have an Android phone. I'd like to make an app for the other students in the class that have an Android phone. And things are whirring and whizzing and singing and doing all kinds of things. And it's wonderful, and they understand different learning styles. I do something, and this was a while ago in my courses, called an OTB presentation. That doesn't stand for off-track betting. That stands for outside the book. So there's 4 students in a group. They submit one PowerPoint with 4 hyperlinks. They give a presentation, but nothing they talk about can actually be in the book. And they teach my college success book. In fact, this morphed into an entire course in which students worked in competitive teams, and they taught the book. One student found the best print resource, one the best technology tool, one the best website, one the best activity or created one. And the course that it morphed into was taught by 4 communication faculty, so 60 students. They broke out into sections of 15, but in the small groups, the students taught the course, and the course was called So You Think You Can Speak? And it was a semester-long competition in which the faculty were the judges. And the students were really into it. Very, very active, real-life learning. They also write a case study. And in my book, there are case studies with models. They're students of mine who you see throughout the book doing different things. This is a student, not his real name, Anthony Lopez. He's having a great time in college. He's seeing 3 different women, and he's eating a lot of fast food, and he's drinking a lot, and you see a cell phone from his message from his mother, call home, And so they do this. They write a case like this, and they know at some intuitive level what their issues are going to be. And they put all these little things around it based on their lives, and I learn a lot about them. And then at the end of the course, they reflect back in an analysis mode what they've learned and what they still need to work on. Then they do a group ad. Does anybody do this kind of a thing where they work in technology teams and they create an ad? Now, if they're using my book, it's an ad for note-taking. It's an ad for test-taking. It's an ad for learning styles. I will tell you that they use Flash, they use iMovie, they use all sorts of tools. They are so creative. Some of these ads make me either laugh or cry because they're so touching. They can make an ad for your course, but they work together and they collaborate on technology. So no matter what it is I'm teaching, and I think you have this bent as well, be practical. Make it real. Make it as hands-on as possible. For me, that's a little bit of a challenge. For you, perhaps that's easier based on what you're teaching. Next fall, I'll teach communication training and development. And the first day of class, they come with a training company they've designed and their business cards, and they give an elevator pitch. And some of them have actually started consulting businesses based on this assignment. It's real, it's hands-on. So I think what I'm saying in essence is this. If you were hungry, and I know you aren't because you just had lunch, this might look like a really good meal. You've got lobster and a baked potato, and it looks like something good to drink, and etc. But here is my question to you. How would you feel about this? So the point is what? Even if it's good, it can get tedious. And to carry the analogy even further, some students don't even know they're hungry, especially that very first semester. Whatever it is you teach, make sure that metacognition is part of the process, that you're teaching students to monitor, to be aware, and to change their learning if it's not working for them, that they have this control, they have this power. Set aside the distractions and really zoom in and focus. I had a student who failed my communication exam. I said, how did you study? She said, I read the chapters 5 times. I said, do you think you would have done better if you had read them 6 times? She said, no. She needed to change the way she was preparing. Look at this study. I asked students, how do you know when you're done? I just do. I trust in God. My eyelids get too heavy. I've been at it for a long time. So other than running out of time, how do you know your paper's really done? How do you know you've really understood what's in the whole chapter you've just read? All the way down through, my mom tells me to go to bed. And look at the last entry when I've highlighted, recopied my notes, made flashcards, written sample questions, tested myself, etc. The last thing I want to say, and we'll open up for just a couple of questions, is this. Technology does not equal us. Where is the future of higher education going? I don't know. I wish I did. Will there be a backlash? What lies ahead? I do know this, that perhaps some of those same people you heard about yesterday, the CEOs of major technology companies here in this part of the world send their students to the Waldorf school where there's no technology allowed until grade 8 because they want their students to get a firm foundation in being able to think critically. At the extreme, we are so enmeshed in our connections that we neglect each other. And so what I want to say to you in conclusion is, reach out and touch someone. That personal relationship you build with your students, whether you're at a brick or a click institution, whether you're online, whether you're face-to-face, the language you use, your demeanor, all of those things communicate so much. There is no replacement for you. So driven to distraction at the drop of the hat, I have one final quote. I wanted to show you this slide again since you might have missed it the first time. And do we have any questions? Yes. Are there mics up or not? Not really. I'll repeat it. How do you start teaching them these things? Okay? First of all, they have to be aware that what they're doing is actually more harm than good. So awareness is always going to be the first step in any learning process. And then you may do some kind of desensitive, you know what I mean. You may do some incremental sorts of things where you say, all right, I want you to close down all distractions and only have this project open for 10 minutes. on Monday, for 15 minutes on Tuesday, for 20 minutes on Wednesday, or whatever. Somebody told me at this conference they tried to get their students to give up all technology for 24 or 48 hours and still hasn't had a taker on that experiment. So it is a process of learning and working with them and having this personal relationship in which you work on it together, because it's an issue for you as well. You know, the average college student cannot go more than 10 minutes, the research says, without checking email or checking the phone, checking the status. And so just being aware of this and then beginning to work through the problem, I think is the place to start. Thank you. Any other questions anywhere? Well, I want to thank you for inviting me to your conference, for accepting an outsider, and some of you have been so gracious and so friendly to me. The quote that I want to close with is one of my favorites. No matter which hat you wear, if you're a student, if you're a professor, remember this: the classroom is a microcosm of the world. It is the chance we have to practice whatever ideals we cherish. Cherish that opportunity, and thank you for all you do for students.